Hello. I posted recently about how to submit records of rare breeding birds to help the work of the Rare Breeding Birds panel, and through that the conservation of rare breeding birds themselves. This, as promised, is a follow-up on what information these records, however you submit them, should contain to be as useful for our work as possible. To give a couple of examples of bad practice, there's nothing more frustrating than the record without precise location details. So, for example, it's impossible to tell whether the birds you're reporting are different than those reported by another birder. Or submitting a report of 2 individuals in the breeding season without telling us whether it's 2 males, 2 females, or more excitingly, a pair. So a good record should include this information. It should tell us about species, obviously, date or dates, precise location, the number of birds, what breeding evidence was observed, any information on productivity, and any other relevant contextual information. But let's go through these in a little more detail. So species, obviously you can't submit a record without this. It's worth genning up on the RBBP's list on our website so you know which species to look out for, and remember that we cover rare breeding subspecies such as white wagtail, or non-native species, rare non-natives such as red-crested pochard. Dates include at least the first and last dates of any observations of breeding birds, but it's better to include all the dates. If you're using a portal such as BirdTrack, this will be done automatically. Location, be precise. A good location name, the accepted name for a well-known place such as a nature reserve or the nearest landmark or village. But also an OS grid reference, at least a 4-figure grid reference, which gives the 1K square. Better still, particularly if it's a clear territory or a nest site, a 6-figure grid reference will be more exact. This can be crucial. For example, if you found nesting little ring plovers in a gravel pit complex, 6-figure grid reference will allow them to be distinguished from another pair elsewhere at the same site. Note that BirdTrack and eBird allow you to drop a pin on maps to give the exact location of records. It's a really useful function. Counts. Obviously, we don't just want to know whether a species was present, we want to know how many there were. We also, for species for which it's possible, want to know how many of each sex, and if you can, ages. You can do that for gulls or raptors, for example. And again, if possible, we want to know how many breeding units there were, for want of a better term. So the number of singing or displaying males, the number of pairs, the number of nests. So don't just tell us there were 7 woodlarks, tell us there were 7 singing males, or 6 singing males and 1 non-singing individual, or whatever. A record of 13 shovelers in May would be much more useful if we knew it was 6 males and 7 females. Even better if you added that 8 of these appeared to be paired up, there were 4 pairs amongst them. Breeding evidence. So there are a series of set codes, same as they use for bird atlases, which are used to classify breeding behaviour. They can be selected from drop-down lists on BirdTrack and eBird, and a really useful way to describe what's going on. They're ranked, with lower codes indicating a lower level of breeding evidence, maybe just a singing bird, rising up to codes that prove breeding, i.e. recently fledged birds or bird incubating eggs. I'll do another post getting into the detail of breeding evidence codes, so watch out for that. Productivity. We also want to know about breeding success if you observe it, so any information on eggs in a nest, the young in a nest, dependent young, in the case of wildfowl and waders, or fledged birds. Find anything else that's worth reporting. This could be null data. It could be when you didn't see birds. You could say, I saw a golden oriole in this wood between these dates, but not thereafter on several visits, meaning that we know it left rather than you stopped going to see it. It could be details on the birds. These, I think, were the same pair as last year. It had the same colouring male as last year. Or details on the breeding attempt. No young fledged because the nest was protected by a fox, for example. That adds value to the information. So there you are. These are the sorts of things we want included in your records when you submit them, to make your observations as useful as possible to our work and for the conservation of the birds. Thanks for listening, and thanks in advance for all the excellent, detailed and really precise rare breeding bird records you'll be submitting this year. Thank you.